poop. B-A-T, poop. You know what bat poop is? Yes, you can find it in bat caves. Yes. There's a lot of names for it, but you can find it. It's very rich in growing crops. Farmers in Mexico add it to their corn crops or what kind of crops they do. Okay, growing pot, yes. It's a great thing. And it's just like the human sludge that you get at your local, or maybe you don't get from your local sewage treatment plant. But this is very, very good stuff to grow, and it's always grown, for over the centuries. Having a bat cave with a bat poop in it, and you add that to your plants grow bigger, more corn. Yeah, so they do that in Mexico all the time. And you do it in the United States. You go to a nursery, okay, and there's bags of fertilizer, and then there's special stuff, which is rich in nitrate. Yes, you can buy it at your local nursery. Some, I can't say all knows what it is, but many nurseries, especially around bat caves, they can buy this because people go in the caves and harvest the bat poop, which is extremely dangerous, as we see in COVID-19, where they suspect the wet market in China. Somebody went into a bat cave, harvested the poop to sell it in the wet markets in China. Why? Because you have all these people with little gardens. You go in China, you look at all the buildings. They have little gardens. They have gardens sitting on the roof. And, hey, this stuff is rich in nitrogen. It's a lot cheaper than some of the ammonium nitrate stuff. Yeah. If this thing would have occurred 50 years ago, it very likely would have never gotten out of the village. People would get sick, they'd possibly die, and they would never do it. But in this case, in December or November of 2019, some farmer got sick, brought it into the wet market, and spread it around. And all the old folks why old folks? They're the ones who go shopping in the wet market. They bring this stuff home. You got three generations of a Chinese family living at home. Yes, yeah. It's like this country. We used to have grandpa, who didn't live very long. Now we live over 65. You go back 50 years, and people were dying before 65. The human population is basically to die off between 40 and 50. Jesus died. Yes, common. Yes. But back to the bat poop. They set up after 2003, when SARS came out. They believe it came from bats. They started up a big university, big in Wahoo, China. They went actually looking into bat caves for diseases of bat poop, colonies of bats. I think it's the University of Colorado, in Boulder, Colorado. There is a study of bats there, and what they have done is to set up a bat house. Now, like a cat house, totally different, a bat house where they study bats. They have, basically they have a bat house with colonies of bats inside, and at dusk they open up the doors, the bats fly out, and when the bats come back in the morning, and all winter long they have a controlled temperature. In the summertime, if it gets too hot, it's cool inside this stuff. You want to keep your patients or your subjects happy, and you want to make sure they're fed. I don't know what they feed bats, but I presume it's more than just spiders. But they feed them everything. They keep the whole colony happy, and they collect the poops. They make sure they're happy. They're not under stress. Animals go under stress. Why not under stress? There's a factor in the rat population about stress factors. A happy wild rat, well, that's why you kill rats, have a constant war against rats. A healthy rat population all carry a bubonic plague gene in their blood system. And if a rat's under stress for environmental or lack of food, that gene is activated, gets into the bloodstream, it's there to kill the rat. Well, the rat has fleas on it, so the rat bites, always, for if they live on blood, and they're pretty well signaling when the rat is about to die, they find another warm being to be on. And if it's a human fleas, you might say, they infect that. And the humans, basically, what they do is now they have a different disease. There's a rat disease, animal disease, cat disease. And among humans, how they spread it is cough. Yeah. Now, remember Ebola, a bat virus, is spread the same way. People are infected by the bat. Don't eat bats. Bats revenge. And they eat the bat, they get infected, and they do the same thing. They touch, they spread, thing. Remember, only one person ever died in the United States of Ebola. I think it's only one. He brought it in. Very dangerous. And he got sick at the right time, because then they put him in the hospital and they found something going on. And, he came from Africa. What's in Africa? Ebola. Yeah, thank you. And you thought that was supposed to get everybody tuned up, right? And they forgot about Ebola. COVID-19 from 2003, they studied bats. They set up this institution. And the United States put money in it to get the research. The Chinese put money in it. I think Japan put money into it. Other countries, we put money into it for research, because outside of the one in Boulder, Colorado, nobody does bat research. Well, see, there they go into the caves. They go in the hazmat thing. They put all this stuff in there. They're very careful what they do. But they're picking up bats. They're picking up bat poop. You don't want a bat to bite you, so you treat them very happy. Bats the size of your hand. They're not the little itty bitty bats, they're the big bats. And you basically collect bats, you bring them back to your lab, you treat them, you feed them, you make sure they're happy, and then you let them go. In Colorado, they have bats in their bat houses. I think they got a big building where bats fly around, or rooms where bats fly into. You leave the window open, bats fly into it. And you get to check back poop. And you're looking for diseases. The one they were lucky, because their study of one of the 500 viruses they found in bats, they found something similar for COVID-19. And they shared it. Of course, by that time, you're looking for the virus, and by that time it was sweeping across the country. This wasn't China's fault, considering what happened in China. How did they get affected? How did they get all this stuff very affected? Well, one of the things, they get rid of all the foreigners. You tell an American he can't leave this room, and see what happens. So they basically kicked all the foreigners out of Wahoo, and started building everything up. And everybody was warned. I've heard about on Well, Virology Week, they were talking about it in February. They figured that 2 million people, was it by the September of 2020? No, 20, the following year, 2021, maybe 2020, that 2 million people are very likely be dead if we can't find a vaccine. And the vaccines were shared around the world. I know the American right wing and Christians and don't like this, or Donald Trump couldn't understand that. Donald Trump has a hard time understanding. I have a strange feeling he'll have a lot of time on his hands soon. But yeah, trying to convince people you got a plague there. We're not used to plagues anymore. The biggest thing we had in 2017 was the Spanish flu. And everybody masked because people were dropping dead all over the place. People were dropping dead. Literally speaking, in 2017, whole apartment buildings would be dead. One day they'd be lively with children and everything else. Somebody brought in the thing and they coughed away, and that thing just spread through the apartment building, and the next day you were pulling dead bodies out of the place. COVID-19, it was almost the same thing. It's kind of hard having people say, well, we're not being vaccinated. Even still, this is 9/28/2022. Even still, 400 people a day are dying from COVID-19 because they refuse to be vaccinated. They are dying from that disease, COVID-19, not everything else included, not heroin overdose or dropping dead of a heart. They are dying from that disease because they refuse to be vaccinated. God will protect us. Yeah. I can make fun of it? Sure. I got my 4 shots. And my flu shot. Yep. Now you better know it. This old bird wants to be around for a few more years. I sure wish some of my relatives would actually take this seriously. Oh, you haven't died. Yes, but I also don't drink a cocktail in the morning, drink a cocktail in the afternoon, drink a cocktail and take a drink of cocktail before I go to sleep. Right. And I can see across the room. It is not a hazy here. It's not hazy in this room. God, lights here. I mean, many of my places I go in, you smell. Oh, this is good for me. It's never been good for you, but what can you do? Back to bat poop. Yes, if you have a bat in your belfry. I've been accused of that. Bats in the belfry, bumblebees in the basement. No. I have airways, but I don't have bats in the belfry. Now I've had bats. I had a little itty bitty bat, and it came in on something from outside. It started flying around, and I said, "Okay." I made a little place for it, put it in the air thing, and flew around, and it got into one of the other rooms. I left the door open, it got into the room. It was cold in that room, and it died. It's a mammal. I feel sorry for it. Yeah, because, very likely couldn't get back to where its bat house was. And I wasn't about to put it outside in 30-degree weather. But that is my thing on bats. I looked into the factor of having a bats around, but I'm missing insects. I mean, I can't say I'm missing insects, but it's climate change. I can only go bad on climate change. I had the little insect thing outside, a little blue light and what have you. Well, a few mosquitoes, some moths, some flies, but not what I used to have. I don't know. Is there a climate change here? Yes. Will affect things like insects. Yes. If the bats can't get enough insects, then they're going to die. Yeah. Which is dangerous. Your bird population. You ever hear the birds sing in the morning? I don't hear birds sing in the morning. Yeah, I leave the window open. I'm not waking up by birds singing in the morning at 4:30 in the morning or 3:30 in the morning. I don't hear that anymore. And my cats are not eating all the birds, but I don't hear it. How will global warming? I'm quite sure it is affecting bats. There's a bats who live outside in trees and that. It heats up. They go into heat stroke. And communities that have bats in there are finding out that maybe it's wise to have bats living inside buildings where you can regulate the heat or the airflow, and where you have water, so they can pick up water off of trays. If you want to keep your bat population, you got to think of them. You got to think of what we are doing to the planet and how to keep them alive. You lose your bats, you lose something that eats insects on their body weight per night. And unless you want to have a lot of insects, you don't want to do a lot of insects, you have bats. I know in China, as I said about China and their bat thing, they have buildings with bats in that thing, and they're basically there is that they keep them cool in the summertime, warm in the wintertime, and the reason is the bird population. They also have bird houses, and to eat insects. And you get the flying insects at night, you get the insects during the day, and they say it's a lot better than spraying, because spraying you kill everything. You kill a good bev, you kill the bad stuff. But spraying also can kill your birds and kill your bats. And the thing is that you don't want to kill something that will protect you. You protect them, they protect you. And as global times change, insect populations change. Very dangerous. Well, that's my thing on bats. Okay.